Welcome to the Plant Trainers Podcast, where we're helping people improve their quality of life through nutrition and fitness. And now, your hosts, nutrition and wellness coaches, international speakers, Adam and Shoshana Chain.
Hey, I'm Adam Chain.
And I'm Shoshana Chain, and we are
Propelled by Plants. Today we bring to you episode 461, Going Through a Lifestyle Change with Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn.
In today's episode of the Plant Trainers Podcast, we're bringing back one of our classics that put the Plant Trainers Podcast on the map, Prevent and Reverse Heart Disease with Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn. It was an extreme honor to have him on. We got his phone number, we called him at home, and it was super fun to have this father of plant-based lifestyle and author of the book Prevent and Reverse Heart Disease on. In fact, that was one of the books that really helped Adam go plant-based or know to go plant-based in the first place. We covered a lot of the questions and uncertainties out there about heart disease and the diet, and we hope that this conversation will help some of you have a tool to share with other people that you care about to learn and how to take action. We want everybody to be able to prevent and reverse heart disease and just live the very best life like Adam did and is.
Dr. Esselstyn is widely known and recognized for his role in the documentary film Forks Over Knives. 23 years ago, while chairman at the Cleveland Clinic's Breast Cancer Task Force, Dr. Esselstyn wanted his peers to do more in the way of preventing heart disease, as he found the research on plant-based diets to be extremely strong. He and his family adopted a plant-based lifestyle, and he is responsible for so many others following suit with tremendous results like me. He and his wife, Anne, are full of energy and spirit, and you'd know that if you heard Anne on our podcast not too long ago. Great episode. Share it out. You're going to learn a lot. And if you've heard this one already, it's a great one to hear over and over again. Enjoy the show.
Hey everyone, now it's more important than ever to stay close and connected to us as we're going to be making some changes here at Plant Trainers. So please head over to planttrainers.com and get our plant-based comfort foods recipe book for free. That's a $14.99 value just by signing up for our newsletter so that you can know what changes are, because we want to make sure that we stay in touch.
And now for a moment of gratitude.
I am grateful for my clients. It's so wonderful to be able to work with people who are ready to start to make a change in their lives, and especially the ones that have been working on concentration, on focus. They've been getting great results, so thank you guys.
Just last week, we were at a couple of volleyball tournaments, one for each of our kids, and I'm just grateful to have the opportunity to watch them improve and play and have fun. It was a lot of great times.
We're on the line with Dr. Esselstyn. Dr. Esselstyn, thank you so much for being on the Plant Trainers Podcast today.
Well, thank you, and I'm just delighted to have an opportunity to share some of my research and clinical strategies with you.
Well, we're very excited for that. And before we get into that, do you have a moment of gratitude that you'd like to share with us and our listeners today?
Well, sure. I mean, every day that I have an opportunity to find that there are more kindred spirits who are looking forward to really what I think is a seismic revolution in health, which is to show people really the skill set and the nutritional literacy that will empower them to absolutely be able to eliminate chronic illness. Pretty exciting.
That is very exciting, and we're so grateful for the work that you've done and how much you share with people. And we wanted to know if you're able to very briefly just maybe describe what heart disease is, because I think a lot of people just associate it with having heart attacks but don't actually understand what's happening inside the body.
Well, the heart disease we're probably going to talk about in this interview is probably the most common that affects people in Western countries, namely disease of the arteries that supply the heart. In other words, the heart is really not the problem. The problem is the arteries, the coronary arteries that supply blood to the heart. Once they begin to block up, then we have this problem of heart attacks. And then the heart muscle itself is weakened. And really, so it's so important to sort of differentiate the fact that all of the research that we're focusing on is to show people how simply and really quite easily it is to prevent and reverse coronary artery heart disease. Obviously, there can be disease of the valves, there can be disease of the muscle itself. There can be disease of the muscle that is caused by high blood pressure and a host of other things. But I think for this evening's purposes, we're going to be talking about the most common form of heart disease, which is coronary artery heart disease.
And how much of coronary artery heart disease is actually preventable if someone were on a plant-based diet alone?
Well, if they start young enough, obviously they're not going to get any of it. Because you see, the key thing here is that we're all experts in this disease agree that this disease has its inception and its onset when we progressively injure the life jacket and the guardian of our blood vessels, which happens to be that delicate innermost lining called the endothelium. And what makes the endothelium so magical is it produces this molecule of gas, nitric oxide, which is the great salvation and protector of all of our blood vessels. For example, nitric oxide keeps all those cellular elements within our bloodstream flowing smoothly like Teflon rather than Velcro. Keeps things from getting sticky. Number 2, nitric oxide is the strongest blood vessel dilator, widener. That is to say, when you climb stairs, the arteries to your heart, to your legs, they widen, they dilate. That's nitric oxide. Number 3, nitric oxide protects the wall of the artery from becoming thickened, stiff, or inflamed. Protects you from getting high blood pressure or hypertension. And number 4, nitric oxide, and this is key, nitric oxide in a normal, plentiful amount will protect you from ever developing blockages or plaque. So literally, everybody on the planet who has cardiovascular disease has their disease because they have so severely injured and compromised the capacity of their endothelial cells to make nitric oxide that they simply don't have enough to protect themselves. And it's really very, very exciting because when people grasp and understand this simple concept, they can be elated to think that this is something that they can easily reverse and remedy by stopping those foods that every time they pass our lips, they injure the endothelial lining.
And when we talk about reversing heart disease and we're able to clear our arteries again, do we ever help those endothelial cells completely? Do we ever, or are they still scarred long term?
Well, they're probably never going to be quite the same again, but this is not a malignancy. And there's no question that you can very, very promptly restore nitric oxide. We have seen PET scans of our patients that clearly show at baseline an area of the heart muscle that is being severely deprived of blood supply. And once they make the profound transition to whole food plant-based nutrition, stop eating anything that's going to injure the endothelial cell again, often literally within 3 weeks, we can see this reperfusion occur. And it's terribly exciting. And not all the blockages or the plaque will reverse, because some of these are old, they're calcified, they're filled with fibrosis and scar. And nevertheless, even those patients where this main plaque in one of the epicardial arteries doesn't regress can enjoy the same benefits, because all the other parts of the artery, as they recover, they get really enough collateral flow so that they can carry on without having to have bypasses or stents.
So did I just hear you say that if somebody who eats the standard American diet stopped doing that and went to a plant-based lifestyle, within 3 weeks their heart would start reversing the damage?
Oh yeah, it's in the I don't know if you have a copy of my book, but you'll see clearly in the pictures of what we call the PET rubidium dipyridamole scan. That's just a PET scan. You see the PET scan at baseline where it's orange and where it's yellow, and there that's beautifully being fed a normal amount of blood supply. And then you see a segment that is green, and that's very poor. And then you see that is at baseline. They get counseled into the correct way of eating, and 3 to 6 weeks when we repeat it again, you can see that area that formerly was green is now also yellow or orange.
Right, and we've seen the book, we've watched Forks Over Knives, we've followed you around a lot and learned a lot from you, and it's been great. And so we've changed our lifestyle several years ago, and when I met with you in Toronto, we talked about my tumor on my kidney. You probably don't remember this, but my tumor on my kidney and my eyes how the arteries in my eyes were faded, and then a year after being plant-based, they were much brighter red and wider, and the doctors couldn't understand what happened, of course. But so I guess my question now would be, and this is something that I push on people all the time and ask the same question, but why should someone who's healthy go plant-based? If they're living a healthy lifestyle, or so they think they are, what's going to make them make that change of habit?
Well, again, I think that the key thing here is going to be knowledge or education. So let's suppose you've got somebody who's 25 years of age, they're feeling fine, and they think, well, why should I make this transition, which seems so significant and somewhat extreme? Although, when you think about it, I think the term is really wrong, because I think the term extreme, the most extreme diet on the planet today is the one that's eaten by 97% of Americans, because this is the most unhealthy country with chronic illness and diseases like obesity, diabetes, and heart disease that don't even exist. Remember, half of the planet is eating a plant-based diet, and they never have any cardiovascular disease. We have made $1 billion industry, health industry in this country, over an illness that doesn't even exist in half the planet.
And we have so many doctors who are claiming moderation, eat lots of veggies, half your plate veggies, a little bit of starch, and a palm size of animal protein. So
that's okay. That's just you can't blame the doctors, because they never get any nutrition in medical school, nor do they get any nutrition in their postgraduate training. It's just they're being asked to deal with a form of therapy for which they have absolutely no information or knowledge. But that's going to change. I mean, that's because what really is going to change is not talking about it with hyper snake oil. What's going to make it change is the science. And now we have impressively and increasingly, the science is out there, and it's very powerful. I want to come back, though, to this person who said, I'm 30 years old or 25 years old, I feel great, why should I change? Let's put it this way. We know that the combat casualties from the Korean War, these young men, average age 20, 80% of them at autopsy of those who died in combat, 80% already had gross evidence of coronary artery disease that you can see without a microscope. Not enough for their cardiac event yet, but there the disease is established. That study was repeated 45 years later, this time looking at young women and men between the ages of 17 and 34 who have died of accidents, homicides, and suicides. Now the disease is ubiquitous. Everybody. Again, not enough at that age to have your cardiac event yet, but there is the foundation for this disease, which by the time you're in the late 40s and 50s, now we begin to see these cardiac events.
And then also, I guess, a warning sign that people don't realize has to do with their heart and coronary artery is also being impotent and having to take the little blue pill. And people don't realize that this means that there is a blockage in arteries, which means that they're at higher risk for a coronary incident.
Oh, yeah. Yes, good point.
So we talk about a plant-based diet, no added oils, very little fat, especially for people who have experienced heart disease before, and very little sugar, very little salt. So what about this idea of oils being needed for brain function? Experts are saying that the brain is made mostly of fat, and we need fat to be able to think properly for our brain to function properly. So there's lots of fish oil being pushed or flaxseed oil being pushed.
I think a couple of points here. First of all, what are the foods that every time they pass your lips, you injure the endothelial cell that makes this wonderful nitric oxide? Those foods are any oil: olive oil, corn oil, soybean oil, safflower oil, sunflower oil, coconut oil, palm oil, oil in a cracker, oil in a piece of bread, oil in a salad dressing. Oil injures the endothelial cell, as does anything with a mother or a face: meat, fish, chicken, fowl, turkey, and anything that has a dairy: milk, cream, butter, cheese, ice cream, and yogurt. And any excesses of sugar, sugary drinks, cakes, pies, cookies, cake, that is stevia, agave, and any excesses of maple syrup, molasses, and honey. And when you take away those foods that injure the endothelial cells, then they recover, and that's what begins to sort of not only stop this disease, but begins to turn it around.
So what about the benefits that are being spoken to fish oil for brain function, for dealing with depression?
No, that's pretty well, that's passé. Your fish oil, yeah, if you like to eat PCBs and mercury and dioxin, you can get that in fish oil. But fish oil is really a terrible way to get omega-3.
Right.
Where does the fish get omega-3? From salad.
Plants.
What salad? They eat algae. So if you want, and study after study now, 20,000 people in randomized studies with fish oils, no benefit for heart disease. So if you want omega-3, eat plenty of green leafy vegetables and have a tablespoon of either flaxseed meal or chia seeds on your cereal.
Sounds good to me. So we talk about all these animal products and dairy products and poultry products. Egg whites, a lot of people seem to say, but egg whites have no cholesterol in it. So I'm okay.
But it's animal protein. See, there are only two parts to the egg that are bad.
The white and the yellow.
You got it.
Unless they eat the
shell.
shell.
You can eat the shell.
And I guess then it's also promoters then of cancer, and it causes other harmful events in the body, and it's definitely...
Well, even the World Health Organization is so vividly come out in October of 2015. Imagine that. The World Health Organization, all these different countries got together and agree on one thing, that red meat is classified as a class 1 carcinogen capable of producing cancer.
That we've been known that for a while, so what took them so long, basically, right?
Well, these things take years sometimes to get, these old habits die hard.
Yeah. I mean, I find nutrition to be a very confusing topic for a lot of people, especially the younger ones. And
well, there's so many books out there now that between Paleo and Grain Brain and Atkins and South Beach and Zone and all those books that really can be saying good things about people's bad habits, you're sure to get a good bestseller. But
we're just going to take a little break here because I want to share with you that growth is something that happens for everyone and every business. And we've been going through a lot of personal and professional growth here at Plant Trainers, and we want to stay connected with you. That's why we're giving away our plant-based comfort food ebook that's worth $14.99 for free at our website at planttrainers.com, or by clicking the link in the show notes. Click on that. Get on our newsletter because we're going to be making some serious changes and you need to be aware of what's going on. We look forward to connecting with you there. And now back to the show.
The key is to see if the author has done some research that has been published in peer-reviewed scientific journals to prove the point that they're trying to make. And that's what differentiates the quality of this.
What about the different camps within the plant-based world? So we have ones that concentrate more on starch. We have ones that, still concentrate on a vegan kind of paleo. How do you feel about that?
Well,
even raw.
Raw
I think
diet,
you've got to, yeah. Well, raw isn't going to do it because I think that increasingly there's recognition that, well, yes, there's some things that I love to have raw. Some of the things in the salad. And that's fine. I'll eat an apple. I'll eat an orange. I'm not going to eat a raw potato. I'm not going to eat raw barley or rye. Obviously, you want to have this. I like to have that in flour or cooked.
I don't blame you.
And it's pretty hard to eat raw mustard greens and turnip greens. And those things are, I think increasingly there's an awareness that you can get more nutrients when you cook, more are released that otherwise you might not get. And but certainly I have to. What I guess I'd say about all of those different ways of doing it are what does the research show? And you always have to reach back and find out if there is data to indicate that whether the emphasis is on raw, that they can actually show that they have reversed disease. I don't have a problem with starch in the sense that the only one I know that really pushes that is John McDougall, and he has that just is a way of, I think John has of differentiating his program. But if you really know what it is, it's really like everybody else. We're all eating the foods that most people who will eat that are whole food plant-based nutrition are. You're going to have all those various whole grains for your cereal, bread, and pasta, 101 different types of legumes and beans, lentils, vegetables such as sweet potatoes, white potatoes, green, yellow, and red and purple vegetables, and some fruit. And that's where the foundation is. Now, as far as being vegan, I've never used those terms as a rule in my presentations or in my book anywhere, because I prefer the term, I know it's a little more cumbersome, whole food plant-based nutrition, because it defines what we're talking about. You can be a vegan and eat donuts and Coke.
Yeah.
Or French fries. Yeah. And that's not what it's at.
That's definitely not where it's at. And what message do you have for parents who are feeding their children cow's milk, either, conventional milk from the grocery store, or whether it's straight from an organic, pasteurized, raised cow and it's raw as well? What message do you have for them?
Well, I would do it the same as we did with all of our 10 grandchildren. None of them have anything to do with dairy, because dairy is really a problem for cardiovascular disease, a problem really for malignancy, and it's a problem for, believe it or not, for strong bones, and a whole host of other issues, because what you're doing is, see, milk is liquid meat, and milk was meant for a baby calf to produce it into a 600-pound animal in 6 months. So milk is not for us.
That's definitely how we feel about it. And, we're so happy that you said that, because a lot of times hearing it over and over again from many different experts in many different places really helps to get people to realize that. And I think that, the amount of milk that we consume here in North America and the amount of health issues that we have here in North America definitely needs to be looked at on a grand scale. And, when it comes to osteoporosis, we're number one up here. So it's, it's definitely something that we need to take into consideration. And talking about, osteoporosis and calcium, what do you recommend for people in terms of making sure that their bones stay healthy long-term in terms of exercise?
My own preference is that there's very few who are deficient in calcium. You might check to be sure you've got vitamin D, because vitamin D is important for helping you absorb calcium. Now, once you have calcium that you've absorbed, and how are you wanting to really make that entire bony matrix of yours be solid and strong? And bone really responds to stress. Bones like stress. By that I mean are weight-bearing. So if somebody wants to try to prevent osteopenia or osteoporosis as they get older, they've got to keep stressing their skeleton. And for many women, as I would think, as they get, and they're even in their 30s or 40s, if they get into the habit of stressing their bones, there are studies clearly that show that if you go to the gym and regularly do lunges or even do squats with a barbell, that's wonderful. But it's very challenging for many busy women to be able to go to the gym, change, and start squatting with barbells. And it's just not a part of the daily routine. So what I think is a little easier, and it would be if you can get women to wear a backpack or a weighted vest, maybe for an hour and a half a day, so that when you have that, the weight is being transferred from your shoulders all down your thoracic spine, lumbosacral spine, pelvis, hips, femur, tibia, and so forth. The entire skeleton, other than your arms, is getting nicely stressed. And when the bone feels the stress, it says, "Whoops! When did Edith gain this extra 20 or 25 pounds?" Doesn't have to be worn all day, but it may be just consistently for an hour and a half or so, or an hour, and gradually sort of increase the weight so you get a greater benefit.
That's good. I think I'm going to try that when the kids get home from school. I'll pack their school bag up and wear it as I cook dinner, and that way it's a
Well,
routine.
I think you can purchase these weighted vests over the internet. Yeah,
Probably can.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm thinking about the teenagers the students that I teach and the adults that I interact with, and I'm thinking of why they're not following this lifestyle. It's so simple. Eating plant-based can be so simple, and eating whole food plant-based so simple. Like, why are people struggling with it so much? Why do they think it's so extreme? I mean, it's so simple. It's extreme because they have to give up their habits.
If you've grown up eating pizza and milkshakes and cheeseburgers, you know, they're kind of delicious, and they're all omnipresent. They're all around. Never has to be a great effort to make it happen, and it's handy. And nobody has told you that they're not healthy. Family is eating it. Your parents are eating it. When you go out to a restaurant, you're eating it. No, it really takes education has to be the format, and that's as I told you. The reason that our 10 grandchildren are eating this way is because obviously they've, like it or not, they grew up in an environment where this was made very apparent to them by our children, which are their parents, and with that knowledge and information, they're all at school, and they're surrounded by kids, and they don't make fun of our grandchildren at all, especially because I can think of a couple of them right now are fantastic athletes as well as being wonderful students.
Well, I think that the more the professional athletes and the people that these students and adults look up to, they start to see them leading this kind of lifestyle, I think they're more likely to gravitate to it. And that brings up a question. I mean, having won the gold medal in 1956 rowing, had you have been plant-based, how do you think you would have performed there?
Faster.
Yeah. Faster. I mean, that's what's happening. These people that are moving over to a plant-based lifestyle, whole food plant-based lifestyle, are performing that much better, and they're feeling that much better, and that they're that much more alive.
They're able to stay in the game longer.
The recovery is much quicker.
Yeah, and it's a game changer, and that's why people are doing it. It's a life changer, really.
I met 3 of your grandchildren on the weekend when I was down at the Knob in Cleveland.
Oh,
and,
yeah, good.
You know,
didn't stunt their growth.
I was going to say, definitely didn't stunt their growth. Your grandson had to kind of duck as he went through the door, and it's a regular sized door. And I mean, they're beautiful children. They're healthy. They're strong. They're athletes. I think your grandson has a scholarship. It's amazing that, you know, we have these children to look up to. And when people ask, you know, like, can we actually raise our children on a plant-based diet? The answer is yes, 100% we can. Are there certain things that we need to watch out for and be careful for? Absolutely. But those are things that we need to watch out for and look out for with children who are eating any diet, really. We need to make sure that they're getting everything in, that they're well taken care of, that they have good values. And I think it's the values and the respect for themselves and the respect for the food that they're eating that's going to take them a long way into adulthood as well.
Yep.
I think that the biggest challenge that we face, as you mentioned earlier, was we need to educate people, and education needs to wake up to this whole food plant-based lifestyle. And our students, our friends, our clients, our adults, everyone we interact with is bombarded by the media and the government with all the backing and the money that they put into all the other things. I think that's the biggest challenge, really getting people to get educated, understand the benefits to this whole food plant-based lifestyle, and get on it. And people need to really embrace it because it's going to change their lives. And you've shown it through the research you've done, through your book that you've written, through Forks Over Knives, other documentaries, through the presentations that you give, and all the other fabulous doctors that are along the same path as you do. So thank you for doing that.
Actually, this is a very exciting every day to get up and know that this is on my plate. I couldn't be more excited because the reason that even though it's 15 years since I retired from surgery, what's so amazing about it is the fact that, as I said early on, we've never before in medicine have had anything that was so powerful that could absolutely not only halt disease and prevent it, but often reverse it. For example, not only is heart disease, but you prevent strokes, high blood pressure, hypertension, diabetes, vascular dementia, Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis, rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, multiple sclerosis, allergies, asthma, and just erectile dysfunction, and the list goes on. And it's so crazy to think that you can get this result without resorting to pills and Pharmageddon. And it can simply be done by changing the way you eat. You'll change your internal biochemistry, and your body will respond.
So for people who have been seeing doctors for a very long time, who have been on medications for a very long time, who have tried every diet and nothing has worked, do they need this prescription of a plant-based diet from their actual doctors to begin today? Or is this something, and I mean, I'm speaking rhetorically kind of, but is this something that they can begin on their own, that they can get the advice and health and the advice of a health coach, or through reading books, through reading your books, through following, a very specific prescription of how to eat, and then work alongside their doctors, and as their numbers and health get better, then their doctors will then take them off of medication? They don't need to wait for their doctor to tell them that they can start today.
Yeah, I think it's exactly as you've reiterated. Yeah, when you look, there's hardly there's no physician who's going to say, "How dare you put my patient on the healthiest diet on the planet?" That's easy, and whether they get their advice from somebody who's an up-to-date food coach or nutritionist, dietitian, physician's assistant, you name it, if they're qualified and they understand the benefits and they know how to do it sensibly and safely, there's no downside.
Good. So before we wrap up, we have a question from one of our Facebook members in Healthy Plant-Based Families, and she wants to know if you can give any advice about the chelation therapy that her husband is looking into getting. He had a heart attack about a year ago, and her question is, what can you tell her about this, and is it something that is safe and under your recommendation?
That's a good question. It would be totally unfair of me to have a strong answer on that, because it's something for which I'm really not very familiar at all. I think what we're waiting for with the chelation business is to have a really well-done prospective study where on the other side of the coin there has to be not standard nutrition, but there has to be absolutely an optimal whole food plant-based nutrition on the one hand, and then the chelation with usual diet on the other. And then we'll see how that comes out. But in the meantime, I think that if you have an individual who has vascular disease, that rather than resort to chelation, where I think the jury is really still out, that patient probably would never have had their disease and can probably greatly benefit if they're willing to make a transition to whole food plant-based nutrition.
Fair answer.
It's a great answer. Thank you for doing that. And honestly, thank you for being here with us tonight. We really, really appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule to spend with us and our listeners. And I just want to thank you on behalf of another member of our group and a friend of ours who has been watching you and listening to you and learning from you, and it's changed his life completely. And he wanted to thank you. He hasn't met you in person yet, but he's looking forward to that day. You've changed his life in such a positive way, and he's living life to its fullest now. He's healthy and loving it. So he wanted me to pass that message on to you. And so I'm doing that.
I guess I'll say thank you to the Phantom.
And it's really great. I mean, we learn from you all the time, and there's so much education to be passed on. So continue doing what you're doing, and thank you again for all you've done.
And we will link to your book, Prevent and Reverse Heart Disease, in our show notes, as well as some other sites where people can get more information on some of the work that you are doing.
Listen, thank you so much. I can't wait to see you back in Cleveland.
Perfect. Thanks so much. Have a great evening.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you all so much for listening to this edition of the Plant Trainers Podcast. We want to make sure that you subscribe on iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, or any other podcasting platform.
We really appreciate the feedback we receive from you. Every time we get a 5-star rating or review on iTunes from one of our fans, it really helps other people find us, just like you did.
Thanks so much to our patrons. To become a patron, visit us at patreon.com/planttrainers. Even supporting us with $1 really makes a difference in the quality of the show.
And don't forget to connect with us on Instagram and Twitter. Our handle is @PlantTrainers. Like Plant Trainers on Facebook, join our newsletter, and check out our website at planttrainers.com for awesome recipes, a list of our services, and of course, our latest podcast.
We encourage you to email your questions to info@planttrainers.com so that we can help you improve your quality of life through nutrition and fitness.
So we hope we've inspired you today. Join us again next time
And
have a healthy day. Or is that too corny?
It's a little cheesy.